Hey guys, wanted to go over just my keybinds and my thought process behind why I have things keybound the way that I do. I do not use, at least currently, I do not use an action bar add-on. This is the classic UI action bars. And I have pretty much all of them full, but I do swap things out for different raids. So for example, right here, there's a macro for BWL whenever I'm controlling Razor Gore to destroy eggs. And I'll swap this out in AQ40 for my Viscidus macro, which puts on frost weapons. So at some point later down the road, I might do an action bar add-on, but this is working pretty well for me. But as far as my keybinds go, I only have bound the main action bar here, and then my two side action bars are pretty much all keybound. All the stuff right here are things that I just click, which is mostly just my protection potions, FAP, different macros. These are things that are not critical to gameplay, such as like shield wall or shield block or blood rage or whatever. These I can just kind of click, stone shield. I can just click these as I need them. There's nothing wrong with you don't have to have every single ability in the game keybound. I don't think that that's realistic. But I do think it's ideal to have a keybind set up in such a way, especially as a tank and even as a healer. I have a paladin healer. I don't really raid heal at a high level on my paladin, but this mindset can carry over to that, and even for DPS. So when I first started this tank, what I did was, so as a tank, as a warrior, if you've ever played so I played a druid in TBC, and that's kind of where I learned that if you're going to be in a stance and your action bar changes based on that stance, whether that's a rogue in stealth or a druid or a warrior, it's smart to only have the abilities that are applicable to that stance. So you can see, like, if I change to defensive stance, my action bar completely changes. So it doesn't make sense for me to have. So as an example, look at Thunderclap. Thunderclap says requires battle stance, meaning it can only be cast in battle stance. That doesn't make sense for me to have Thunderclap like over here and taking up an action bar slot, because it would only be useful when I'm in battle stance. So even though I've only got 1 through 0, and 0 is my shoot, so really I only have 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I've got 9 abilities, and some of them are can be used in 2 stances, like hamstring, but I can't use that in defensive stance. So anything that cannot be used in every stance, I have on this action bar. If you look over here, so Sunder Armor is shift 3, and I just have these are very simple, so 1 through 9, and I don't use a keyboard. I do have a gamepad that I use. So the actual keybinds you could do, Q through T or whatever, whatever your keybinds are going to be. But 1 through 9 are the main action bars, and then over here I have F1, F2, F3, F4, F5, all through the Fs, and then I have shift 1, shift 2, shift 3, shift 4, shift 5, shift 6. So I'm just holding shift to do these other keybinds. But like Sunder Armor is one that can be used in any stance, so it is out away from the action bar, because I don't want Sunder Armor taking up the same slot in all 3 stances, if that makes sense. Cleave can be used in any stance, so that is out here. Here's a trinket slot, so this is my top trinket. So right now I've got Mark of the Champion on there, but if I had and the way that I have my warrior set up is when I use, this is a macro. So my trinket macro on my tank is I use slot 13, which is the trinket, and then I also cast Last Stand. And the reason that I have it set up this way is that if Last Stand is on cooldown, I'll usually put Lifegiving Gem in the top slot. So you can't use Last Stand if it's on cooldown, right? So if I wanted that muscle memory of, this is my oh shit button to use Last Stand, and if Last Stand is on cooldown, I will put, not all the time, but sometimes I will put Lifegiving Gem there so that I still have, that's like a mini last stand basically. So that's what that macro is. So this is basically one of my oh shit buttons. This is my Shift 7 is my dual wield button, which is a macro, which puts Thunderfury in the main hand and Hungering Cold in the offhand. And I use that macro to go back to dual wielding after I've put on a shield, if I need to put on a shield. Shift 8 is my macro for it says wreck, but if I mouse over it says retaliation. It actually swaps depending on what stance I'm in. So now it'll cast recklessness. In defensive stance it casts shield wall. In battle stance it casts retaliation. So that's another way you can save buttons. And you could put that down on the action bar, but I was used to using Shift 8 as a no shit button. That used to be bark skin on my druid. So I already had the muscle memory of doing Shift 8 as that. So that's how I left it out. And I did this macro. So if I go to my macro, I'll show it to you real quick. All it is cast stance 1 retaliation, cast stance 2 shield wall, cast stance 3 recklessness. So this is just saying if I'm in stance 1, do retaliation. If I'm in stance 2, do shield wall, etc. This is my other trinket. So I actually have this set up so it will cast Slayer's Crest, then Earth Strike, and then use 14. So it'll whatever is in slot 14 it'll use. But sometimes I have I have Earth Strike in slot 13, but I don't want to cast that macro because it'll also cast Last Stand. So instead I've built that into this macro so that if Slayer's Crest is on cooldown, it'll cast Earth Strike. And then if I have something different here, it'll cast that. I don't really have another unused trinket right now, but it's just there for the future. This is my mount macro, so this will mount and dismount. It also does the Karaji battle tank so it does the cancel aura first, which will, so if I'll cast it real quick. So if I press it, it'll cast, and then while I'm mounted, if I press it again, it'll dismount me. So it's just a one button mount and dismount. My Healthstone Macro. So this is nice to have. So it has the tooltip of Major Healthstone, but that's because that's how I set it up. So this is all the 3 different ranks of Healthstones, and then it also so if you have all 3 in your bags, which usually I just have the 1, it will cast them in this order. So it will do the lesser rank 1 and then rank 2 of the better Healthstone, Whipperroot Tuber, Major Healing Potion, and then also Lifegiving Gem, if I have it equipped. And then if you add this combat flag, this is basically a conditional flag. Like right now I have Whipperroot Tubers in my bags. Right here. So I'm going to press this macro. It's not putting Whipperroot Tuber on cooldown. I have to be in combat for this to work. So this is so you don't fat finger it and accidentally use a Healthstone or drink a potion or use a Whipperroot Tuber. It's a really nice conditional to put into your macros for things like Healthstones and potions, and also for things like sappers. You don't want to cast a sapper out of combat. So you can, and I'll show you my sapper macro. I'll probably get to it later, but what is it? Sapper. Cast combat goblin sapper charge. So if you see I've got sapper in defensive stances 5, it doesn't work. I have to be in combat for it to light up and work. So that's nice that you can't you won't accidentally fat finger that while you're in like Stormwind, you know. And you could do that for these potions too, even though they're clickable. You can just write macros for all these. That's another reason I have these clickable, so I can't accidentally drink them by hitting a keybind. So anyway, that's the basic thought process. Is, you know, as I created this warrior and started leveling, I thought, you know, I macroed charge. Charge is taking up an entire button by itself, but what it does is that's also my battle stance. So if I hit F2, that's defensive stance, F1 is this macro, charge and battle stance. So it'll cast battle stance and cast charge and start attacking.
Something first. It's too far away.
So now see, now I'm attacking. I went into auto attack mode. So I just clicked him. I didn't right click. Now if I press F1, it'll automatically put me in battle stance. If I was in range, it'll automatically charge and it'll automatically start attacking.
I need to get closer.
And then same thing with intercept. Intercept is a macro. It's exactly the same macro as this battle stance. Cast berserker stance, cast intercept, start attack. Now you intercept cost rage. So if you swap, if I have no rage, I'm not going to intercept, obviously. But it's a good macro. Oh shit! That guy's definitely a bot. Look at that. I'm reporting him. He really just tried to kill. You're definitely a bot, dude. You're getting reported. He cast, I'm gonna have to go back and watch that. I think he cast Hunter's Mark on that and then sent his pet in. He didn't, it wasn't like an accidental aggro. He did that on purpose. Either he's a bot or he's dumb. I'm gonna say based on his name, he's a bot. So keep going, Demo Shout, you can cast that in any stance. That's why it's over here on this action bar. Piercing Howl, same thing. This is my Lip macro. That's another one that I have macroed for combat only. So Lip is just cast in combat, limited invulnerability potion. So you can see kind of what the strategy is here, right? So this is all the stuff that can be cast regardless of what stance I'm in. Because I don't want to be, you don't want to put like Demo Shout. If I put Demo Shout, let's say as keybind 6 in berserker stance, well then it's going to have to be keybind 6 in defensive stance and keybind 6 in battle stance. So just like my Blood Rage can be cast in any stance, but I ran out of buttons, right? So it's just 6 in any stance.
Not ready yet.
And also there's not enough buttons to take up every single one of these. So if you look, so in battle stance, Bloodthirst, that could be cast in any stance, but I have it as button 2 because I want that to be easy. That's a button I'm going to be mashing a lot. So I want that as an easy to reach keybind where I'm not stretching my finger. You don't want your fingers, if you're going to be, let's report this guy on stream. We'll do it later. So basically, whenever I see stuff like this happen in the world, I just send a ticket in and say, I suspect that this player is a bot. Please investigate their behavior. And then I'll say, tried to, whatever, what is he, level 40, level 50 hunter tried to attack a boss and, maybe he is just a new player, but I report these things all the time. So anyway, there's not enough abilities that can only be cast in berserker stance or defensive stance or battle stance to fill up this entire bar. So some of the things are going to carry over. But I wanted, when I was very conscious of the fact that I was going to tank in endgame, or that was my goal, was to tank in endgame when I first started this warrior. So if I would, at the time I was full prot, so not while I was leveling, but once I hit 60. So this became Shield Slam. So 2 was my Shield Slam, 3 was my Revenge, 4 was Heroic Strike, 7 was Shield Block. And again, this is not, don't look at the keyboard. I have a gamepad where I've got 1, 2, 3, I've got 5 buttons across. So I've got 5 across the middle, 5 across the top, and then 4 across the bottom. So 7 is not, 7 is actually my 2 button, but it's right underneath of it. So I can move my finger down 1 and then hit Shield Block. But I wanted to be able to just mash these buttons as quick as possible without stretching my fingers. And that's why they're all next to each other. So I don't have, all the way over at 9, I don't have Revenge way over there or Heroic Strike or whatever. So that was kind of my thought process. Battle stance abilities, you're really not in battle stance ever. But it's the same kind of process, like Whirlwind and Revenge are 3, so then Overpower is 3, because Overpower is a reactive ability that only lights up, in certain circumstances, just like Revenge. So I have that muscle memory of doing that when Revenge pops up, so I want to use the same button for Overpower. I don't really PvP a lot, I don't swap stances if I'm DPSing to do overpower, but that's the thought process, right? And then also, 6 is oh, he's running away. Maybe he learned. Let's see. Is he gonna turn around and attack it? Oh my gosh. All right, I'll keep talking and we'll see what happens. I didn't know we were gonna get a show today. So in battle stance, you can see they've got a quest macro, which is a quest turn-in macro, fishing, and then hamstring. I have hamstring the same. Hamstring is actually disarm in defensive stance because you can't hamstring in defensive stance, and then hamstring is also in berserker stance. Because I don't have enough abilities to throw in here. Like all of my abilities are macroed or keybound over here. So I kind of ran out of stuff to put in battle stance, and it's nice to have a keybind for fishing whenever I want to fish. So when I'm in defensive stance, and you can see, so Mocking Blow is 1, and then Taunt is 1, because they're both taunts. And in Zerker stance, it's Execute. So these 4 buttons, I'm using these, I'm pressing these buttons more than any other button in a raid while I'm tanking. And these are all macros as well. Every one of your abilities should be a macro because it should have start attack macroed into it at the very least. You see, this one's actually called Salve. This is my Zerker stance. So in Zerker stance, it says BT. This says Salve, and the reason why is because I use an add-on called BCT that removes unwanted buffs from myself. So you see it cancelaura's salvation, cancels blessing and protection, clicks BCT, and then casts Bloodthirst, and then does start attack. Revenge is a macro. Not that macro, it's a different one. This one. Which does the same. It removes the unwanted buffs. It also has Heroic Strike macroed into it, so that essentially what I can do is just mash 2 and 3, and whenever Revenge lights up, it'll cast Revenge, and since Heroic Strike is a queued ability, meaning that it's on the next swing, you can queue Heroic Strike and cast Revenge at the same time, because Heroic Strike does not incur a global cooldown. So I can basically just mash 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3 at the same time, and when Bloodthirst is coming off cooldown, I just have to watch to not hit Revenge. That's why I have a separate key also for Heroic Strike. And then that uses Immature Venom Sac, which is for Visitus. I just mash these 3 buttons while I'm tanking. Usually I just do 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3. And then if Revenge comes off cooldown, or if Revenge lights up and Bloodthirst has 1 second left on the cooldown, I'm gonna swap from hitting 2 and 3 to hitting 2 and 4. Because if I Revenge, it'll put Bloodthirst on a global cooldown, and I don't want that. So I'll be hitting 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, and then as Bloodthirst is coming up on cooldown, if it's got like 1 second left, then I'll hit 2, 4, 2, 4, 2, 4. And I'm just doing that so I never miss a Heroic Strike queue. Sapper, we already went over that. Blood Rage, you want to Blood Rage before every fight to get Rage, but you also want to Blood Rage. So you see I've got a weak aura that shows me when it's off cooldown. And then if I'm in Berserker stance, it'll show me both Berserker Rage and Blood Rage. That's just to get you the extra rage. Shield block. I have 2 different macros for shield block. I think they're over here, yeah. So I have shield block with Thunderfury and then shield block with Hungering Cold. The reason why is that there's some fights you don't want to have Thunderfury equipped. One example would just be the twins in AQ40. You don't want Thunderfury proccing on the twins and pulling bugs. So what I do is I'll just drag this. I've actually got it right here, but I'll drag it over. So I'll just, when we're on twins, I'll drag this over. And then when I press shield block here, it'll automatically put my shield on and automatically put on Hungering Cold in my main hand. And then when so the way that this macro reads is, it'll stop casting if I don't have a shield equipped, meaning if I'm dual wielding. The reason you want stop casting in there is because if you have Heroic Strike queued up, so let me go back to dual wielding. If I'm fighting and I have Heroic Strike queued up every single, basically I never miss a queue, which if I'm in Nax, I'm pretty much, and I'm tanking a boss, I'm Heroic Striking every time it's up. You can't swap weapons while Heroic Strike is queued. So you put in stop casting if you don't have a shield equipped. And the reason you want that is if you have a shield equipped, you do want that heroic strike to go through. What that'll do is that'll stop queuing heroic strike instantly. Then it goes and equips Thunderfury in the main hand. And then it equips, if you don't have a shield equipped, it'll equip the Face of Death or whatever shield you put in here. Then it does the click BCT to take off buffs. Then it does start attack. Then it does shield block. So this is a 1-button macro that, if you press it,
I need a target.
if I had any rage, I would be shield blocking right now. So you just press one button and it automatically puts on your shield, swaps your main hand, and then so let me swap this back just to show. So
I need a target.
So there it puts Thunderfury on. Now when you put you see
I need a target.
shoot goes on cooldown. When you swap weapons, it does reset your swing timer. So your swing timer, you don't want to keep swapping weapons back and forth. That's why this says, you know, only do these steps if I don't have a shield on. And then my macro to go back to dual wield is just, you know, stop casting if I have a shield on only, because, you know, again, you don't want to cancel heroic strike.
I need a target.
And then it puts your weapons back on. So that's a super nice macro. It took me a while to get it to the point where it's at now, but and you could, like I said, you could put any weapon in there you want. This is main hand slot 16, and then slot 17 is your offhand. You can copy this if you want. I just realized you guys can't see the screen, and I can't drag it over there. I'll put the macros in the description. I'm playing on an ultra wide monitor, and I just looked at my stream and realized you guys can't see it. That's embarrassing. Somebody's chatting me right now. Hold on one second. So shoot, I have a macro for that as well. I would pull up my macro interface, but you guys can't see it. This is a pain in the butt. I don't have another monitor to stream on either, just this ultra wide one, because that's what I play on. So I'll post a shoot macro as well, but this is just a macro, and this isn't any stance, it's 0. So but anyway, the thought process is to keep your abilities close together, so that way you're not stretching your fingers out for things you hit nonstop. So if you're a DPS, you're casting BT, Whirlwind, Heroic Strike, and Execute. All 4 of those are right next to each other. You know, Sapper, I've got his 5. That's obviously going to be on cooldown if you're doing trash packs, whatever. And then Pummel, Hamstring, like everything is just right there. You don't want to have, you know, Whirlwind is 2 and then BT is 9 or Shift 9, or you don't want to be, you know, doing all these combinations of abilities. Or combinations of, not abilities, combinations of like key presses. You know, you just want to do 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. It'll make you a better player because the buttons are right next to each other. And then on other characters, I do the same thing. So like on my paladin, I've got like rank, I forget what it is. I think this is Divine Illumination is 4, and then 5 is down ranked heal, 6 is the next rank up, and then 7 is the next rank up, and then 8 is the full heal for flash heal, something like that. And then 9 is Holy Light. So when you're down ranking heals, you can have them right next to each other, so you can look at raid frames and pick, you know, I'm going to cast a 7, I'm going to cast an 8, I'm going to cast a 7, I'm going to cast an 8. You can down rank without, you know, with having all of those buttons right next to each other. So back to the keybinds. You definitely want to have defensive stuff keybound. You want to have all your shouts keybound. So I've got Challenging Shout. Even though it's on a 10-minute cooldown, it has its own dedicated keybind. Intimidating Shout, same thing. It's got its own dedicated keybind because I don't want to be clicking for that type of stuff. Clicking for potions and protection potions, even the rage potion. You know, it's pretty easy to just reach right down here and click, even while you're in the middle of an encounter. You can keybind them if you want, but I try to have every ability keybound, and because the muscle memory, if you play other characters, almost everybody at this point in the game has an ult, at least one ult. In our guild, we have lots of players who have multiple 60s. Some of our warriors have 3 warriors that are 60 and they raid on all 3. Some of them play healers and then they play warriors. Some of them play rogues and then they play, you know, a priest or whatever. But if you have a bunch of keybinds for like all these potions, that's not really going to carry over to another class. So when you're on a different character, if the muscle memory is very similar, it's going to be easier for you. You're going to be a better, you know, like on my paladin, I'm not a great paladin, but I have my keybind set up very similar to how I have on my warrior. So like on my warrior, I have Shift 8 is shield wall. That is divine shield. So I know that's my oh shit button on my paladin. My trinkets are always Shift 6 and Shift 8, or excuse me, Shift 9, because I just have that muscle memory baked in. So you know, on my rogue, it's the same thing. Shift 9 and Shift 6. Those are always trinkets. Even if they're not, even if I don't have any active use trinkets, I don't use that keybind for anything else, because I don't want to accidentally, you know, go farming on my rogue for a day and then raid on my warrior that night, and then I lost some of that muscle memory because I was playing all day doing the wrong thing. I was basically practicing the wrong thing, if that makes sense. You want to set up your keybinds in a way, and you want to do it early. You know, if you're already 60 and you've been playing, you know, if you've got Last Stand in defensive stance and it's 3, and then in Berserker stance 3 is Bloodthirst, and then in you know, and then 3 is Mocking Blow in battle stance. In my opinion, that's not good. That's not a good practice to do that. You should have similar abilities and that do similar things. Like Taunt is 1, and then Mocking Blow is 1, and then Execute. Obviously, Execute's not a taunt, but I'm pressing that button a lot when I'm DPSing. So I want it to be a button that's close to my other DPS abilities. I want my fingers to be close to each other, where I'm just mashing them basically, you know, together. So that's kind of my my mindset, my thought process. You know, all of these other ones, these are just some macros. This is just extra bar space, and then I've got, you know, cooking and fine minerals and stuff. There's times that I have thought maybe I will download an action bar add-on, and but I'm just worried about because this is enough. Like I have. If I really need to take some stuff out, I mean, this is hourglass sand. That's only useful in BWL. I could take that off the bar and put something else there if I needed to, and then just put it back out there. Or I could just open my bags and click the sand for my bags. You know, those are things that are not critical to happen in 0.1 second. So the reason I don't have an action bar and I don't use an action bar add-on is because I'm concerned that add-ons keep breaking. So I used to use Tell Me When. I still do use Tell Me When a little bit, but I used to use Tell Me When for all sorts of things on my warrior, all my cooldowns, for reminders, and I have been slowly transitioning that to weak auras, because weak auras is more robust and you can do more things with it. Tell Me When is easier to set up, but weak auras is more robust, and then once you get good with weak auras, you can do a lot more cool things. But I'm worried about like Cataclysm and Wrath of the Lich King and all these other quote-unquote classic expansions. They keep breaking classic era, and they keep breaking add-ons, and then the add-ons stay broken for a week or two. They're not getting fixed, you know, the next day. Even when the developer knows that there's an issue, they're not always getting fixed right away. So I don't want to have an action bar add-on that's broken and then I got to go raid. Like that's not going to work for me. So I will probably never swap to an action bar add-on, because even like with my UI, this is Pearl. Yeah, this is Z Pearl unit frames. If this breaks, I can always swap back. I can easily swap right back to the, you know, the classic. and it might be a pain in the butt, but I have weak auras written that monitor my health and warn me when my health dips too low. So, you know, I'm kind of putting all my eggs in the weak aura basket, because weak auras is one add-on that pretty much never breaks, because it, you know, Blizzard is not changing a lot of API commands, you know, with these updates. So weak auras is very rarely broken. So I would suggest, you know, keeping the standard action bar add-on. You know, you can hide them if you need to. Like I could hide this, even though I use these last few buttons for different macros, and I do click these sometimes. I could hide this, but I don't really need the room because I have, like I said, the ultra wide monitor. So, all right. Well, hopefully that was helpful to some of you guys. Like I said, if you're a new tank or if you want to tank, I don't really DPS, so but I keep the same strategy for DPSing. But when you're tanking, it definitely helps a ton to have all of these buttons. That even taunt, it's nice to have taunt on one, because in taunt, honestly, that should be a macro too. There should be a start attack macro in there. I just have never put it in there because sometimes I taunt and I don't want to attack because I'm taunting something that's like shackled, or I'm taunting something that's that was mind controlled and it's getting ready to be mind controlled again, and I taunt it to get threat, but then I don't want to attack it to break something. So that you could make a macro just for start attack for this as well. But I'm definitely a better tank by having these buttons close to each other and limiting the different muscle memory, you know, on different characters, where you know, all of a sudden my main, you know, like 2 is Sinister Strike on my rogue. Like I mash 2 on my rogue, 2, 2, 2, and then 3 is Eviscerate. So on my rogue even, I'm training myself to always be hitting 2, always be hitting 2. That's my main ability, is always 2 on my characters that do damage. If anyone has any suggestions or thoughts or, you know, whatever, put them in the comments. I'm gonna do a couple more videos on just UI and things like that. So I'll see you guys in the next one.